brief introduction of myself and Elire, give an overview of Oracle Government Cloud. Then I'll dive into the functional and technical lessons learned and best practices for implementation, which is where we'll spend most of the time today. And lastly, we'll wrap with some key takeaways and a Q&A. My name is Bulthuis. I've been at Elire for almost 6 years now. Prior to Elire and consulting, I worked in human resources, where I was part of a PeopleSoft to Oracle Cloud implementation that really launched my career into Oracle and into the consulting space. Over my time at Elire, I've been part of a number of implementations, including the project lead at Sandia National Laboratory and also the project lead at the Idaho National Laboratory. Both are part of the Department of Energy, and much of this presentation is a bit of a brain dump from my experiences on both these projects. So quickly, a little bit of about Elire. Elire started as a PeopleSoft shop, so we come from a background in PeopleSoft that has really helped excel in our delivery to clients that are trying to make that jump. So from PeopleSoft to cloud, so kind of a little bit of a niche there. We also do service clients though that are coming off other legacy systems as well. We also provide roadmap services for those trying to just lay out a plan and a path to cloud as budgets, resources, current state customizations, resources are all key factors when considering moving to the cloud. Based on our implementation experience, we have a number of accelerator tools and a tailored project methodology for Oracle Cloud. And we are a certified Oracle partner network service provider. Our complete services include obviously HCM, as well as Cloud ERP and EPM. Again, path to cloud, help with that readiness and laying out a kind of roadmap for implementation. Optimization services for those that are already live, looking to kind of make the most out of their investment. Reporting and technical services, as well as cash management, treasury side, as well as managed services. Some of our cloud customers, INL, Lawrence Livermore, Sandia, US Navy are all federal clients on GovCloud, and then also Johnson County, I think IEHP is also some state and local governments as well. So what is Oracle Government Cloud? Let's start with a high-level overview. It is a complete cloud infrastructure platform for every government workload. So there's a huge landscape of Oracle Cloud infrastructure with FedRAMP status. Today, the point of this conversation, we're just going to focus on the application side for human capital management, and then briefly hit on some of the custom applications for bolt-on apps as well. But it's important to note that the underlying technology is there and can be part of your licensing. FedRAMP status. So the current status for Oracle Cloud is FedRAMP High, Impact Level 4. If you are unfamiliar with FedRAMP, it is basically the standard approach that the US federal government uses to authorize service offerings or cloud service offerings. There's a separate impact level available for impact level 5 available for DoD clients. And then here's a list of example SaaS and platform as a service applications in the cloud FedRAMP authorization landscape. So implementation lessons learned. I'm just gonna kind of dive right in here and talk about some of our lessons learned. First, I wanted to start off with the responsive user interface. This is the mobile responsive pages that Oracle first introduced in about version 20B, so almost 2 years ago. It's again, mobile responsive, and it's kind of the alternative of what was known as the classic user interface. So some key benefits are that you have these quick action links on the left side of right on your homepage to get quickly at information or quickly to the places you'd like to go within the application. Previously, you'd maybe have to go through the person management portal and search a person and then click on different links of where you wanted to go. Here, it's kind of this one-stop shop right on the homepage. That also brings out the HCM Design Studio to really tailor your transactions per user. So you can tailor transactions to how a manager looks at it, to an HR admin or to an HR generalist, what fields show up and what's available. So right here in the middle, you can see this is just an example of what a transfer action can look like. And then also you can, tailor some of your, if you are used to HCM, the classic user interface, you're used to person management, you could kind of replicate a lot of the same information into the employment info page. And that's one of the things that we recommend as a way to have that full access of data in one location that you might have had before with person management. Another key benefit is that you can use auto-complete rules to force effective dates, default fields, and trigger alerts. This is extremely helpful if you're releasing new self-service capabilities that you may want to ensure that it starts at start of payroll effective date. So you can enforce that type of rule with autocomplete rules, and then also improved workflow and experience. So on the lessons learned, again, implement on responsive pages rather than classic UI. Don't necessarily dismiss the classic UI pages. It really helps in understanding the art of possible in terms of what data fields that you have available on both the person and assignment pages. Again, start with the employment info page for assignment transactions. Identify which fields that you want visible first on each transaction. So, don't necessarily go right into autocomplete rules. Start with the layouts. Get everything that you want to be shown for each user, and then come back and add on some of those additional capabilities like effective dating rules, defaulting fields, making fields required, etc. Again, autocomplete rules helpful for effective dating. And then try to limit some of your workflow complexity. I've seen where some clients' workflow can get fairly complex with large distribution lists. It might be difficult to maintain. One way is you can assign users some areas of responsibility and then attach that to the workflow. This is something that's not necessarily well known if you're coming off of PeopleSoft. It's not a piece in PeopleSoft today that most clients use. So you might want to consider that for helping streamline the workflow. Staffing model. Next lesson learned is really to focus on key requirement decisions early on in the project. Jobs and position structure is really a foundational human resource setup decision that needs to be made up at the beginning. But if you're thinking about potentially changing, wanting to change, don't rush this decision. Make sure that you take the time and really truly decide. And also, make sure to get feedback from various different groups if there is something you'd want to change in your staffing model. Typically we see clients make quick decisions based on existing setups. So really understand what that level and desire for change and transformation is up front at the beginning. What is the jobs versus positions? Jobs represent the duties that people perform and the required skills. So you might have an analyst job, you might have a specialist job. Position, on the other hand, represent a specific instance. So you might have the analyst of information technology or a financial analyst. You could also have it based on location or business unit. And so, so really kind of think about how you do staffing, how you measure headcounts, how you do budgeting. I will say, as a lessons learned, your position management is most common in the public sector due to budgeting and public funding considerations, but not all government agencies use it. One advantage of using jobs is that it provides greater flexibility. It's not tightly as controlled as positions are. Positions, on the other hand, have more rigidity that's helpful in recruiting as well. Because you're basically, if you have a position, somebody leaves, you're looking to backfill, or you have that authorized addition to add a position or add a headcount. It kind of, you don't have to necessarily go through some of the same posting processes for approval, because it's basically essentially pre-approved. Reporting also is a benefit with positions. It's kind of easier to track some of the staffing metrics, of course, headcount and budgets. Next, I'm going to talk recruiting. So here we have a kind of the full life cycle of recruiting, and key activities in recruiting are tracked along the candidate selection process, or CSP. The process always starts with creating and posting a job requisition. Oracle supports a number of different templates, including pipelines, external and internal posting. Recs can be posted or initiated by a manager or recruiter. Sourcing and screening candidates, you can create campaigns, pools. You can have partner enablements, such as job boards, or posting out to like LinkedIn to help advertise, email blasts, that sort of thing. Applying for a job. Here, external candidates can apply for a job just with an email address. You don't need to create maybe a username or password. It's external and internal sites are both natively mobile responsive. Interview and selection. Here you can schedule interviews. There's an Office 365 enablement, and then also you can respond to candidates. You could have predefined disposition letters to send out directly from the application. Offer management. Offer letters are supported by BI templates. Here, there's a lot of flexibility. They're highly configurable. You can build in logic. In fact, many clients that we go to, we end up being able to help streamline and reduce the number of offer letter templates that they may have had in their legacy system. And then lastly, recruiting is seamlessly integrated with HR. You can use what's known as the transfer to HR process to send a candidate to the pending worker inside core HR for seamless integration. So what are the lessons learned? I mentioned partner enablement. So LinkedIn, Outlook 365, telemetry for resume parsing, hire right for like background checks and I-9 processing. There's even more out there that's available out on cloud customer marketplace. Some of these are free, others you have to pay for. And just a kind of a reminder from a government standpoint, they're not all FedRAMP, so you should allow time to review and get security approval for these. Also allow time for procurement, even though some of these I mentioned are not free. There's still terms and conditions and stuff like that that would likely need to be reviewed. Conversions, recruiting conversions. If you're converting your legacy data, start early. Templates and candidates are required to be converted in a prescribed order, so make sure you give yourself ample time. Also, verify if there's some FedRAMP limitations and loss of the functionality with FedRAMP. So a couple of things that we've run into is there's kind of bits of like content pieces that it's kind of always changing and evolving as we continue to progress here in each quarterly release. What features and functionalities do have FedRAMP status? One of the things we recently ran into is Oracle Search. It's kind of an advanced candidate search within your database. That was not FedRAMP, so we weren't able to use it. There's still workarounds that exist, but things like that are out there, and just to be aware of. Adaptive intelligence, digital assistant, those are other things that I think they are FedRAMP, but they're again always changing. So make sure you understand where they fall, especially where they fall on the Oracle roadmap, especially when it comes to licensing, if additional licenses are involved. Journeys. So Journeys is a new and improved module within the HCM suite. It basically adds a user experience wrapper on top of the existing checklist functionality. The whole idea is to kind of create this better enhanced user experience for employees to navigate their career from becoming a worker, onboarding, and promotions, all the way through their full life cycle of employment. There's three basic checklist templates. The first is pre-boarding, which is the prior to first day, onboarding, which is the first 30 days, and offboarding which is when an employee resigns. As far as lessons learned goes, make sure you understand security implications when it comes to pre-boarding. If you use SSO, candidates will need a way to authenticate their credentials in order to access the system. You may consider enabling the chooser option, which allows you to either select your SSO or enter a username or password. My guess is any security plan that I've come across within the government space, that's likely not an option to enable that in a production environment. They'd like to make sure that it always has to authenticate against the network. So you may consider a separate SSO connection or a separate metadata group for pre-employees in order to authenticate. Journeys has a visual builder cloud service component that is not yet FedRAMP. It may also require some separate licensing too, but again, this is just additionally helps kind of tailor that full user experience in Journeys. Some functionality related pieces is that we found that Journeys works best when triggered from an action. So hire, promotion, transfer, termination. So you've accepted a new job and you launch the kind of journey and associated with that action. Employee self-service, self-launch is not available without a security customization. So it can only be launched by the manager or HR specialist. The custom form task is a good option if you have like a government related form that you need to have completed. It can get at least a lot of the same information. Look and feel might change a little bit. If you are concerned about, replicating all the look and feel, OPA or App Composer are good tools to help facilitate that. I will say this custom form option within Journeys is a bit more integrated with the rest of core HR. There might be some integration items that you should consider if using OPA or App Composer, because it does launch you out into CRM. All right, now let's talk about benefits. And this is HCM, the benefits module. So key features. It's fully integrated with HR and payroll. You can utilize life events to automate self-service enrollment changes when, for a marriage or addition of a child. The enrollment process is an easy to use train stop approach. So some of the lessons learned that I've come across with DOE clients, there's many variations in rates and company paid offsets. In defining rates, the DOE uses more complex definitions of rates by earnings and or grandfathered requirements. Most programs containing the individual plans have initially been built on limitations of the legacy system. So we usually have to spend a lot of time redefining the separation of programs and plans to eligibility profiles. Legacy systems tend to have several programs defined having the same plans and rates. Vendor file transmission. Typically clients have several custom integration needs to third-party providers. Known to you and Benefix are two platform providers that have pre-built connectors into several different benefit providers. And if you have one they maybe don't have an integration with, they'll build it for you for free. Implementation is free. However, you are charged at go live on the amount of data you transmit. As far as security with these, I know Known to You, I'm not sure about Benefix, but I know Known to You is built upon AWS that is FedRAMP. So it typically does still pass a security approval standpoint. Lastly, understand the separation of absence and compensation benefits and where it lands in Cloud HCM. This is really a change management activity. Legacy PeopleSoft tends to have absence plans stored in benefit plans, for instance, PTO. There's usually a ramp up time to get the staff thinking in terms of HCM Cloud. It also holds true for the total compensation or total reward statement, which is typically in compensation owned task in HCM, which is where we'll go next. So compensation. Some of the key components of compensation are base pay, which is often a shared responsibility with core HR. Here you configure the different pay frequencies in what's known as the salary basis. Individual compensation, which is typically where spot awards, charitable contributions, or recurring payments, such as like cell phone allowance, can be configured. Workforce compensation, this is usually where your annual process is set up, which you can see in an example here. You have budgets near the top, and then kind of this nice flexible spreadsheet format where managers can plan and enter awards for their employees. Total compensation, which I mentioned previously, is that total reward statement for both intrinsic and extrinsic awards. And lastly, market data. It's the comp survey data that can be stored in HCM. So some of the lessons learned here is that salary basis supports both location and home address based geo differentials. So you can, it's really one thing that we actually ran into recently at a client is that they had a number of exceptions. They had geo differentials based on work location, but they had, if people moved or asked them to move, sometimes they would grandfather and use either home or work location kind of interchangeably. If you set up multiple salary bases and allow administrators to toggle between them, it helps systematically handle exceptions. Salary basis components help further break down salary. So you can set up components like merit, market, promotion type increases to allow that breakdown. Many former PeopleSoft clients are used to having this as sequenced transactions. So if you have that same requirement, it would need to be on a component basis. If you're open just to using your regular salary, your salary is what it is, whether it was merit, market, or promotion, or whatever kind of increase it was. This will help your conversion process. Using components does further complicate conversions a little bit. So just a heads up there. Consider monthly or quarterly workforce compensation plans for variable compensation awards. Many former PeopleSoft customers have bolt-on apps for support or for spot awards and variable pay. One cool thing that we did at a client was actually we did a business process. We re-engineered their business process for variable pay and use a month-to-month kind of award frequency. Workforce compensation has a plan look-back feature where you can aggregate budgets over multiple plans, and that way you can systematically budget and continue kind of continue giving out a spot award or variable pay award in this worksheet type format over the course of a month or frequent cadence at a time. Budget transfers supported through workforce compensation, just mentioned, and then consider your go live timing and functionality releases. Since the bulk of compensation activities fall on a cyclical basis, compensation is a good module when it comes to project planning. It's a good candidate for phased functionality releases, since it does happen on a cyclical calendar year basis typically. Next, time and labor. I will say time and labor is definitely an area where we have cleared several technical hurdles when it comes to government requirements on scheduling and time collection, and also time calculations. First, you're seeing from the screenshots here is our favorite, the 980 schedule. 980s are flexible work schedules that allow an employee to work 9 days, but still 80 hours over the course of a 2-week pay period. This typically gives an employee every other Friday off. Here in the screenshots, you'll see an example of how this layout was configured. Essentially, there's 3 options that we've kind of nailed down in terms of configuring 980s and HCM and Cloud HCM. The weekly time card here with using the Friday AM PM identifier. So the first screenshot, the employee works Monday through Friday, 9 hours, records that Friday, the time in the morning as 4 hours. They continue working through that day. The afternoon time goes to their second week, in which they work Monday through Thursday and then have that Friday off. So still adding up to that 40 hours each week. 980s, there's also another option to use a current and next instead of the AM PM. So you put maybe a 4 hours on your current week and then 4 hours on the next week. Also, there's an option to transition to a bi-weekly time card if you're open to that, and include the AM, PM, or Friday identifiers there. So other also rules, as I mentioned with benefits, fast formulas are a great way to extend the application to code for specific requirements. Fast formula time calculations can be run on approved time to handle these shift differentials, overtime rules that could vary state by state, meal plans, etc. Project task validation. So here's kind of a question: if you're going to use the value sets or the HCM delivered, actually it falls on the financials ERP side, but the project task table. So really the question is, do you plan to implement project accounting, or are you considering it down the road? If so, that should influence how you set this up in HCM. You may want to use the delivered tables and set it up with future how you'd want it to work in the future. If you plan to use just like a lightweight version and still implement projects down the road, maybe you should perhaps use this as the value set, so you're not kind of so you can you can kind of change it when you're ready to implement project accounting. Also, consider how you're going to integrate with financial systems. Again, obviously, if you're implementing financials too, you use those project and task tables. If you don't have cloud ERP, then you consider how you're going to do it. If you're do that integration, there are delivered APIs with the project and task table. Payroll. So payroll lessons learned. First one is to leverage payroll flows to automate payroll processing as much as possible. Next, consider your go live timing. A calendar year end cutover removes the need for balance conversions. Alternatively, you could also consider running 2 W-2s from both HCM and your payroll legacy system. Balance conversions are a large undertaking, and that needs to be right. And if that's the route you choose, make sure you allow additional time within your implementation. Next, 401k. You need to decide where this belongs, whether it belongs in benefits or payroll. For those of you that are coming off of PeopleSoft, you might probably think that it should belong in benefits. Really, the question you should ask yourself is, where are the enrollments and contributions made? If they're made through your third-party 401k provider, then that typically makes the most sense to put it in payroll. But if you make enrollments in HCM, then benefits might be the spot to facilitate that. Again, this is a change management item for most PeopleSoft customers. My experience with the DOE is that plan setups typically allow for a lot of flexibility. There's after-tax flipping. So once you hit a limit, it automatically flips you to an after-tax. There's a number of limits that are out there: 401A, 402G, 415C. And then also various different eligibility rules, lots of grandfather rules. If you move from one government location or agency to another, there's sometimes grandfather rules and just different enhanced matches based on potential qualifications or licenses that you might have. All of these can be solutioned in Oracle through various means of configuration and fast formulas. Costing, you need to decide at what level does costing need to occur. Typically, we see this at the element level, which is the kind of lowest level of costing that usually means a little bit more overhead and maintenance every time you create a new element. So make sure your group understands what will be needed there. Leverage delivered HCM reporting for payroll as much as possible. Again, change management activity, make sure you understand the cloud HCM delivered payroll reports first. Payroll tables are difficult to understand. Data gets archived. So be careful with creating payroll reporting requirements. These also there's a mindset shift from, especially if you're a PeopleSoft customer, of the reports to use. And so leverage delivered as much as possible. Lastly, tax filing. There's 3 delivered extracts in HCM. There's the periodic, which is your weekly or per pay period filing, monthly, and then quarterly, depending on what states require files when. Extracts are run as part of payroll processing. Text and audit files are generated at the same time. The transmission options to federal, state, and local tax agencies. You can use a third-party service or consider self-filing. Third-party services are available are ADP, MasterTax, Ceridian. If you go the self-filing option, consider that this might not be the best option if you have large filings in multiple states. This could be a really huge undertaking and cumbersome activity. So be aware there. All right, tech. We're going to quickly kind of go through these. Data conversion, understand how much history you want to convert. Recommended you do your hire date plus current year. Integration middleware, key decision is what tools you're going to use. Make sure that you do something that's scalable within your organization. Examples are Oracle Integration Cloud. So if you do convert data, or if you don't convert your historical data, where are you going to plan to put that? An operational data store is usually a good option. Security, do you have to complete a security plan or follow an ATU process? If so, start early. Reporting, there's a number of tools available. Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence, or OTBI, BI Publisher, or HCM Extracts. Understand what those tools are and when it's appropriate to use each, and who's the kind of targeted user for each of those reporting tools. Environment planning, you should use a separate environment for parallel payroll testing. Here you're trying to match your legacy, tie out your legacy payroll. At the end of the day, that's you want people to be paid the same. And so you don't want that environment to be updated by or interfered with by any other testing. Automated testing, you should consider an automated testing strategy and implement that at go live for this kind of rapid quarterly release cadence, and that you can focus on some critical processes in HCM. All right, last section is the best practices for implementation. Ilire's methodology leverages best practices for implementation and continues to evolve from the lessons we learn on our implementations. We do follow a phased approach that consists of mobilize, pilot, test, deploy, and stabilize. So starting with mobilize, the goal is to kick off the project with a strong foundation. Some of the objectives include completing a project charter, conducting governance and resource planning, defining roles and responsibilities, building that initial project plan, conducting project kickoff, requirements and questionnaires, and workshop agendas. Best practices allow ample time for project onboarding. Typically with government projects, security clearance takes time, Oracle provisioning takes time. Make sure you allow ample time in your schedule. Define project guiding principles and make sure everybody understands and agrees to them. This is essential from a change management and scope perspective. Establish a project governance structure and resource plan. Allocate dedicated project resources. Ensure SMEs are allocated appropriately and understand the commitment. Typically, the largest commitments are at requirements and testing. And then staff the internal or consulting team with key roles such as a project manager, testing coordinator, and change management and training roles. And then lastly, make sure you complete the RACI. RACI stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consultant, and Informed. This really helps identify everybody's roles for a particular process, and also can help limit sometimes the large meetings that end up happening to smaller audiences for those that really need to be part of it. Identify project communication channels to ensure cross-functional communication. Clearly define your scope and make sure all teams understand and are on the same page with scope. Identify your project roadmap and build ample time for testing. The key goal of the pilot phase is to integrate your cloud environment. After Mobilize, we go into our project workshops where we gather requirements to complete the requirement traceability document, finalize strategies, tech strategies, configure our prototypes, build our integrations, and draft also our test assets. Best practices for a successful build include defining all of the requirements up front, utilizing an integration strategy aligned with your IT skill set and overall enterprise architecture. So if your team knows PL SQL, use a middleware tool that can be supported. If you have a direction from your enterprise architecture group to have all cloud-based platforms, choose a tool that is aligned there. Analyze current customization and identify if business process reengineering is needed, or what will the strategy be to implement bolt-on applications. Aim to reduce security role customizations, and then configuration should start with foundational objects and continue to build with flexible configuration. So, make sure that you can, you start your build with, make sure that you can hire an employee and take them all the way through to pay them, and then continue to build out and tailor those processes to how your end users would expect. Next is the test phase. This is where we ensure system readiness and end user confidence in the system's future state through system integration testing, UAT, user acceptance testing, and parallel tests. Best practices include establishing entrance and exit criteria for each test. Test scripts should be well documented and used as the foundation for automated tests once live. Use beta groups, especially if you're, you're doing some business process re-engineering and you've got some new functionality that you want folks to test out. User acceptance testing should include testing of training and change management materials. And at least 2 parallel tests should be completed and differences should be explainable. We recommend usually more than just 2, but you should complete at least 2 with explainable differences. And then utilize a payroll testing tool instead of manual reconciliation. This is really a lessons learned also from our projects where the tying out between HCM and PeopleSoft was super cumbersome and took a lot of time when we were trying to hit deadlines. So we developed a tool that you can upload a gross to net and a payroll activity report, and it'll spit out differences that then can be further analyzed within the tool itself. After testing, we have deployment. Deployment includes is your ready to go live phase. It includes cutover plan, configuration of your production environment, executing data conversions, communicating our system use. Best practices are to practice your deployments throughout your implementation so that you have established cutover timings and you have automated configuration and deployment where possible. Ensure your key stakeholders are comfortable with a go decision. Sometimes if they're not everybody's comfortable, it might be best in the long run to delay. Establish a deployment communication channel. Typically, activities need to happen right away during deployment. Email, text, WhatsApp, onsite, conference room. Establish how you're going to communicate during deployment. Finally, stabilize is a chance to reconcile any post go live issues and shift to M&O. Activities include post go live support, maintenance strategy, evergreen process for training materials. Best practices, plan post go live refresh for your test environment ahead of time to help with issues. Establish a change control process for new features and functionality post go live. Establish an automated testing framework for those quarterly releases. So thank you all, appreciate it. Our key takeaways from today that I hope to leave you with is that Oracle Cloud is a complete government cloud platform with FedRAMP authorization. Oracle Cloud HCM is a highly configurable system to handle nearly all government requirements. And then utilize implementation best practices to position your project for success. Jordan, any questions?
Thank you, Aaron. It looks like we don't have any questions for right now, but a couple quick reminders before we wrap. Elire is going to be at Blueprint 4D. That's Quest's big conference for all Oracle applications. We do have 3 cloud sessions available at that conference, as well as will be available at booth 328. So if you're attending, make sure to stop by and say hello. We will also be in attendance at OATUG Ascend, which is the following week. And if you want to set up time to meet with any of our cloud experts at either events, make sure to reach out to cloud@elire.com. With that, we want to thank everyone for joining today. Again, a quick reminder that this session's recording will be available in the next few days on our Elire YouTube channel and the Elire website. And with that, thank you so much, Aaron, and everyone for joining. Have a great rest of your day.